history took a really sharp turn. The leadership of Venezuela fundamentally altered, just like that. And while the world is kind of scrambling to process the shock, believe me, the real story, well, it's only just beginning.
Super narrow. So the decision was made, like, immediately. A small, highly targeted operation moved in, and boom. By morning, it was all over. Maduro and his wife were in U.S. custody en route to New York.
Yeah, there's actually a military term for this. It's called a decapitation operation, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's not about occupation, it's not about sending in massive ground forces. The whole goal is speed and precision. You go in, you surgically remove the leadership of a system, and that's it. The whole idea is that by taking out the head, you create this vacuum, an opportunity for the entire system to reset.
But that, of course, brings us to the real question, right? Why? I mean, why did it even come to this? To really get a grip on what happens next, we first have to understand just how far Venezuela had collapsed.
Let's start with the political side of things, which completely unraveled. Under Maduro, Venezuela basically went from a flawed democracy to a straight-up authoritarian state. We're talking political opponents being prosecuted left and right, any independent media silenced. Elections, they became a total sham. All the power ended up concentrated right at the very top with one man. And while all that was happening, the economy was in an absolute freefall. I mean, it's a kind of collapse that's almost hard to wrap your head around. This is a country with the largest oil reserves in the world, and its production just cratered. Hyperinflation basically made people's savings disappear overnight. The currency failed. And what was the result? Millions. Literally millions of people had to flee their own country just to survive, just to find food.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter. You see, this was never a resource problem. It was a governance problem. The country didn't run out of wealth. It ran out of competent democratic leadership. And you have to remember that, because it's the critical context for everything that's about to happen.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. Whenever something like this happens, one word just pops into everyone's head: Iraq. And look, I get it. The comparison is tempting, but trust me, it's also really, really misleading. So let's break down exactly why Venezuela is a completely different kind of challenge.
I mean, the differences are just night and day. Think about Iraq. That conflict was all about a religious insurgency, a brutal sectarian civil war, and you had foreign fighters like Al-Qaeda pouring in. Now look at Venezuela. It has none of that. This is a political conflict and an economic crisis. There's no insurgency, which means the immediate security risk is it's on a whole other level, way, way lower.
So here's the bottom line, the most important takeaway here. This is not a battlefield rebuild. This is a state restart. And those two things, they are completely different animals.
Okay, so if we're calling it a state restart, what does that actually look like on the ground? Well, there's a blueprint that's starting to take shape, and it's built around three main phases. The whole plan is designed to stop the chaos and then build momentum towards a real recovery.
So the whole plan is designed to move from just, immediate crisis management all the way to long-term recovery. Let's walk through it. First up, phase one, immediate control and continuity. Now, this isn't about big, flashy projects. This is about triage. It's about preventing the country from collapsing even further. So you're focusing on securing the absolute essentials, ports, power plants, to stop any looting and making sure that food, medicine, and fuel can still get to where they need to go. The goal is super simple: stop the chaos. Then you move into phase two, visible rebuilding. And this is where ordinary people actually start to see and feel a difference in their daily lives. We're talking about repairing the electric grid, getting the water system stable again, resupplying hospitals, and yeah, this is going to need international help. Not because the people there aren't capable, but because the country has just been stripped bare of all the capital and equipment it needs.
And all of that brings us to phase three, which is honestly the most important piece of the puzzle for any kind of long-term success. And that's restarting the oil industry. You got to think of the oil as the engine that's going to pay for Venezuela's entire recovery. This means fixing up the oil fields, modernizing the ancient refineries, repairing the export terminals, and, this part is absolutely critical, restructuring the contracts to bring in foreign investment. And you do that with profit-sharing deals, not by just seizing resources like in the past.
And believe me, that oil money is everything. It's not just some abstract number on a spreadsheet. That revenue is what will directly pay for government salaries, for all those infrastructure projects we talked about, for stabilizing the currency, and for bringing back social services. Without that oil revenue, Venezuela just stays dependent on outside help. But with it, the country can actually start financing its own comeback.
Of course, you can guess that none of this comes cheap. Not even close. Getting to that point where the oil money can take over, well, that requires a massive, massive upfront investment.
So, let's talk about the sticker shock. What's the price tag on a full state restart?
Well, just for phase 1, just to stop the bleeding, secure the country and keep it from totally collapsing, we're already talking tens of billions of dollars. Think of that as the emergency fund just for immediate aid and security.
Okay, now let's add on top of that the cost for phase 2 and 3, rebuilding all that infrastructure and restarting the oil sector. Now the number jumps into the $50 to $100 billion range. And that right there is the core investment you need to get that economic engine fired up again.
And for the whole shebang, the full, long-term recovery over the next decade, some estimates go as high as $150 billion. And I know that number sounds absolutely staggering, but here's the key thing to remember. This isn't supposed to be some endless black hole for money. The whole strategy is to front-load the investment now so that the country's own oil revenue can take over later and make the whole thing self-sustainable.
So, okay, let's imagine the country is stabilized. The economy is starting to fire on all cylinders. That's when the final, and maybe the toughest challenge of all comes into view, building a legitimate political future from the ground up.
And this is something that just can't be rushed. It's an incredibly delicate balancing act. You have to do it in the right order. First, you have to establish basic order, because trying to hold an election in the middle of total chaos, that's a recipe for disaster. Then, you have to rebuild the core institutions of a democracy. We're talking courts, government ministries, electoral councils that people actually trust. And only after all that is in place can you finally hold credible elections, probably with a lot of international observers watching.
So when you boil it all down, what does this actually mean for the Venezuelan people themselves? Well, in the short term, honestly, probably more disruption and adjustment. But in the medium term, it could mean the return of jobs, prices that don't change every 5 minutes, and basic services you can count on. And long term, it's the chance. And I want to stress, it's a chance, not a guarantee. But it's a chance at a normal functioning country again. And for all those millions who had to leave, it could finally mean having a home they can actually return to.
And that really brings us to the final, and maybe the most important question of all. When you really stop and look at the sheer mind-boggling scale of what needs to be done, politically, economically, socially, you have to ask yourself, was removing one man actually the easy part?
Because at the end of the day, that's the real takeaway here. The military operation, that took a few hours. But putting an entire country back together, that's the real operation. And it's only just getting started.